How do you get the right people on your team? How do you make sure that, sorry, but sometimes you got to kick people off your bus. I call it your bus, right? Who's in the front seat of your bus? Who's in the middle? Who's in the back of the bus? Who's going to cause the bus to break down and be smoking on the side of the highway? Those people have to go. If you really want to start living your dream life, you have to be upfront with, sometimes there's people that are poison on your bus, and it's okay, right? But you have to be the one to get in the driver's seat of your bus.
Hi, friends, and welcome to or welcome back to Life Intended. I'm your host, Kelly Berry. Life Intended is a podcast that explores what it means to be true to yourself and live an authentic and purposeful life. Each episode explores my guest's version of personal growth, self-discovery, and the pursuit of becoming the best version of themselves, as well as how to find the joy in the journey. Today, I have Bose Akadiri with me. Bose is the founder of Goal and Grind, where she empowers high achievers to create impactful change in their lives using the revolutionary vision and goals method. She is no stranger to making major pivots, as she herself moved to Chicago with no job and no network and created a distinguished career in corporate social responsibility at Boeing, Salesforce, and JPMorgan Chase. Prior to working in corporate philanthropy, Bose excelled in nonprofit fundraising as well as in technology sales. So her combination of tech sales and nonprofit development, as well as corporate philanthropy, affords Bose a unique perspective as a thought partner to her corporate consulting and individual consulting clients as they are looking to embark on strategic pivots. As an avid runner, yogi, traveler, and dog mom, Bose believes in finding joy in the 4 key areas of life, which are personal, professional, health, and financial. And she is going to tell us all about those today. I'm so excited to welcome her. Hi, Bose. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me here today. It is a true honor and a joy to be here with you. Ever since our first conversation, I've been super pumped about this, the work that you do, and just listening to all of the other Life Intended episodes have been really impactful in my life. So I'm pumped for the conversation that we're about to have. Thank you for having me, and thank you for that great intro.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm excited too. We share a love for vision and goal setting and strategic planning for, both our professional and our personal lives. And I love what you're doing and what you've created for yourself and for others. And I think that you're just going to share some really great wisdom today.
Awesome. Well, let's get to it.
Yeah, let's do. So I mentioned that you uprooted your life and moved to Chicago, and that is I think it was the catalyst for where you are now. So walk us through that story and what that looked like for you.
Definitely. And this is a question that I've gotten a lot, right? It was something that I had no idea that it was risky or, anything like that. It just felt right in my heart, and it was what was going to bring me joy. So I thought, let's do it. So essentially what happened is I'm living in Oklahoma. That's where I'm from. I have a really good job. I've got really good friends, good support system, but I could just feel it. Something wasn't quite clicking. Everything was good, but I didn't love it, right? I wasn't like on fire for my life. And I knew that I really loved international travel. I knew that I didn't like driving. I also knew I wanted to move from the nonprofit side of life over into corporate philanthropy, essentially like instead of asking, giving. Mm-hmm. And so I said, where can I go and do all this, right? Like it's not happening where I'm sitting right now. And so I started looking and I was like, Chicago sounds good. It sounds real good. And so I came for a visit here and legit, I cried on the airplane home. Like it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, oh, you're supposed to go live there. And so I came home and I started envisioning things, right? And I said, okay, if I can get there, I need to, have joy in what I call the 4 key areas, which are personal, professional, health, and financial. So I said, I got to pay off on my credit card debt because I can't be moving somewhere where I don't have a job and I don't know anyone and already be in the hole. So I took out a second job, paid off all my credit card debt, saved all the money from the second job so that I'd have a cushion when I moved. And I gave 6 months notice at my job where we got to work together and hire my replacement, train my replacement. And then I left. I was like, okay, I love you all. I'll be in Chicago. So I showed up here and life was great. It has been great ever since. And I feel so blessed because I can truly say there has not been a single moment where I thought to myself, I really messed up. Like, I need to go home. I have felt more and more at home here, and I have grown into myself because I really chose myself in this journey, and I chose my own joy, and I went after it. And so what that looked like is when I got here, I had to hit the ground running and start building my network, right? No one knew me. No one knew what I was capable of. And I just wound up really having people placed in my life that were able to support. And the biggest thing is that I was very clear, right? I was very clear on what my talents were and what I could bring to the table when I got a job. And I was very clear with what type of role I wanted. And that clarity came from the fact that I understood what I enjoyed, but I also understood what I was good at, and that overlap, right? And so when I started building my network, I really focused on people who did corporate social responsibility because that's what I wanted to do. And it was tough. I'm not going to say like it happened overnight. You know, the first couple of years here in Chicago, I was doing different roles. I had jobs that, we won't even get into that, right? Things that I was like, I really hate this job. But I knew it was the stepping stone for exactly what I wanted. And I knew it enabled me to make enough money to keep living in Chicago, to put a roof over my head, to put food on the table here. And so one day, one of those contacts came through and referred me to this role. And I did my interviews. You know, I'm shaking in my boots. I'm like, this is the interview I've been waiting for. Call me back for a second interview, a third interview, and a fourth interview. And that's how I got my first job at a Fortune 500. And it's crazy. I know even when you said it, when you were introducing me, it still hits me like a ton of bricks that this girl from Oklahoma showed up here and has been at 3 Fortune 500. Like what? So segue into how I started Goal and Grind is because people started asking.
Before you get into that, remind me, how long now has it been since you came to Chicago?
That's a great question. 10 years.
10 years. Okay.
10-year anniversary.
Okay. Awesome.
10 glorious years. And so people have started asking, wait, what did you come here for? Did you have a job? You know, were you going to college? Nope. I was done with school. I've been working. I came for me. Right? You don't normally hear that. And I didn't realize that. I was just so like, I came for me. And through that, people started asking, well, what was the process? And the process was my vision and goals method, right? I would sit down and I would meditate. And after meditating, I would talk about my joy. I would write down what brings me joy. And I would use that as the guiding light to build my vision. I would use that as the guiding light to build out my goals in those 4 key areas. And then from there, once I saw my goals, I could easily say, you're missing some things in your support system, right? I always say goal crushing is a team sport. Nothing that I have done is solely mine, right? It has been the people who have lifted me up. It has been the people who have spoke my name in rooms that I wasn't in. And I take that very seriously because it's my job and my duty to then do that for others. And that's what I'm doing with Goal and Grind, right? So the first person that hired me, she knew I had done this with my friends. Like instead of doing a housewarming party, I had finally moved into an apartment that wasn't a shoebox. And I had my friends over and I walked them through. And of course, everybody showed up with magazines like, we're doing vision boards. I said, oh, no, you don't need the vision boards. I have a whole workbook for you, right? Keep this here because I have to see my goals every day. And all my friends were like, oh, wow. Like, because, you have that vision board and then it's in the closet. And then in December, you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't got anything done. and you're guilting yourself, you're jolting yourself, you're feeling bad. No, I wanted to move beyond that and make things feel more attainable. And so that's why in my process, we take the vision and break it down into long-term, mid-term, and short-term goals. So you walk away like having a roadmap, right? So yeah, so one of my coworkers was like, well, you do that with your friends, do it with my friends. Okay. And this was really funny. Sorry, Kelly, this goes so deep. I'm like so long-winded. So long-winded. So I get to her house and I realize this woman's my mother's age, right? And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I start getting that imposter syndrome of like, wait, all of these ladies and I'm like half their age. What am I going to have to say? Like, that's going to bring value. And I got real scared. I remember sitting there like, oh, but then I'm like, they already paid me. Like, I guess I better do this. So all the food's out, everybody's eating. I'm like, you better do this. You're here, printed out these workbooks. So we get into it, and the first step is meditating. And I realized a lot of them hadn't meditated before. And it was so beautiful to see this calm come over the room, right? Not like the room was like agitated before, but just this sense of letting go of everything, right? Because so many things are coming at us each day that I really like to start with that meditating so that you can get grounded and centered and really let go of anything that's come your way that's been negative. So we do that, and then we start talking about joy. That's where I get my second surprise. People are like, so surprised, because it's not often that somebody says to you, what brings you joy? So that step is really crucial, talking about joy and just really allowing space and encouraging people to talk about what brings them joy. I'm not talking about like, okay, whatever social media or the world is telling you, like, this is what's going to bring you joy. I'm talking about really going introspective. And from there, we went into the vision, and then that's always fun because that's when people start realizing like, oh, this is how old I'll be in 10 years. This is what I want my life to look like. Ooh, you know. And when we broke those goals down, it was very interesting to hear what some of the ladies shared. And I'm super pumped because then in the last step, it was like, well, how are you going to get there? Like, who do you need in your circle, right? You talked about your joy, you talked about your vision, and then we have this whole holistic look at goals in those 4 key areas in that roadmap. But who do you want helping you to get there? And that's always a tricky one because we all have different backgrounds, different families. You know, some people have a lot of support. Some people have a little support. Some people have no support. And so over the years of me doing this, a lot of the feedback that I've gotten, because I do a survey after everyone because I believe that I'm constantly growing and I want to keep learning and I want to make this better, not for myself. I want to make it better for the people that I serve and my clients. But what I realized is, people were pumped because they had a whole mindset shift of like, oh, this is bigger than a vision. This is a roadmap. And then the second was, oh, I really liked these people here. I want to know what happens, right? So people start saying like, well, what's next? And you know, me, a baby entrepreneur, I'm like, I don't know. I got this one workbook. I've got the method. And so I had to really be introspective. And that's kind of where I am now on the journey is I've started this accountability club. And it's really a space for, oh, okay, you have the clarity. Now let's get your goal besties, right? I call it. It's cheesy, but I love it. I'm cheesy. Is who's going to be your bestie on this journey? And it doesn't have to be one person, right? And it doesn't even have to be someone you already know. But the thing is, goal crushing truly is a team sport. So how do I make sure that I'm not leaving people hanging, right?
Yeah.
That was the biggest lesson that I learned as an entrepreneur is that I'm serving folks. So why would I stop the dinner plate?
Yeah. You know, I think, well, there's a lot of thoughts that I have on all of the things that you just talked about, but I love that accountability club, the name that you came up for, because I think that at its core, we need people to help us be accountable to what we say we want in life. And that's why if you've ever had a conversation with me or talked to me, especially about things professionally, like, I believe everybody needs a coach. I think like the best people at the top of their fields have not gotten there alone. They have had coaches, they have had communities, they've had mentors, they've had it all. And that is why they are where they are. So why do we think that we can get places on our own, that we don't need people to walk beside us or hold us accountable, or, even say, hey, you said you want this, but you're doing things that aren't really in alignment with that. So I love that name. I love that kind of addition to what you're doing, because I think that is like part of the magic of goal setting. And you see that a lot in corporations and the professional world, because you have your teams and you have you're accountable to getting your job done. So a lot of that is like built in, but personally, we don't have that in a lot of areas of our life. So I really love that. Before we go on too much, and this may not be the most appropriate place to do this, but I looked on LinkedIn and I saw your title, and I think you're pretty modest about what you've accomplished professionally and what your method has gotten you. So can you tell everybody what your current title is?
So, okay, I am a vice president at the largest financial firm in the world. And that, it's still weird for me. You're right. That's why I'm so modest about it, because my mom goes around telling everybody, and I'm like, oh, when did that happen?
Yeah.
Right. And it's a blessing. It's a blessing because I have not one, but two jobs that I really enjoy. Right. In my day job, I get to work with all of these beautiful, amazing nonprofits that are doing such impactful work in the community. And I get to be a conduit to help amplify that, and a connector. I always talk about, here we go, strength finders.
Yeah.
I've talked about this before.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite books. But I say that because my top strength is connector and then woo. And that really, I think about it often, because I realize, in my day job, I'm connecting. I'm connecting humans to humans for resources that can sometimes be life-changing, right? But then in my company, I'm helping people connect to resources that can bring them personal joy, professional joy, financial freedom. These things are measurable, right? And so when I talk about those 4 key areas, I take it very seriously, because I also realize without my own growth professionally, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now. People always ask me with Goal and Grind, they're like, well, who designed everything? My first corporate role here at Boeing, that's where I learned really making decks. I mean, I loved who I worked for there. They were really, really, really precise in how they wanted decks, and, how the different colors would mean things, and how consistency would help get your point across and things like that. And I always think back to that, because those are some of the building blocks that helped build me to the woman I am today, and the professionalism that I bring to Goal and Grind, especially when I do the corporate workshops. It's everything that I talk about is rooted in joy, but I have that corporate background that kind of ties it all together. I'm a corporate Barbie.
Well, I think it's just worth mentioning, because you tell your story, and you ended up in the role and doing what you wanted to do, but I think it's that's a big deal. Your role, when I had a conversation with you, then I'm looking on LinkedIn, I was like, she didn't mention that. You know what I mean? It's she didn't mention that she's C-level at an organization like this. So I think that that's amazing. And I think that that speaks a lot to the method that you've created. And, kind of metaphorically speaking, you use that to get from 0 to 100. And, it's in less than 10 years. And I think that's pretty amazing. So I think it's worth mentioning for context and not only like where you've been able to get yourself, but really like the power of doing, goal setting and figuring out what you want for your life and how like it can work to get you from where you are to where you want to be.
It can. Well, and Kelly, you are so kind. Like, thank you. Thank you for acknowledging me in that way. Because, that's part of my growth journey, and where I'm at right now is, it's just really weird to think about.
Yeah.
I think sometimes I'm still that girl from Oklahoma, but like now I've blossomed into this like corporate woman in Chicago that girl will be very proud of, right? And that's also part of what I want to help people with, is making sure that they're making their future selves proud, right? So that when they look back, it's like, all that happened? Like, because it's the exact job I wanted. And here's a funny fact that I don't think I've ever said this like publicly. I think some of my friends know it, but it's funny that corporate philanthropy was like the dream job, because when I was in high school, I was president of my Key Club. And for people that don't know, Key Club is the community service club. So literally, I get paid to do what I had fun doing in high school.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's funny because one day my mom was like, yeah, you got set up for this in high school. And I was like, what? She was like, you literally planned volunteerism for a club of 200 plus students every weekend. She's like, all you ever did was work with nonprofits. All you ever did was create impact in community. And yeah, so thank you. It's good to go down those memory lanes, and the 10 years has flown by. But I will say, okay, on that, something that's really important is those 4 key areas. So in the Accountability Club, I have some courses, and the one that's the most important to me is claiming your work. Because I think, especially sometimes us as women, myself included, we get that imposter syndrome, and it's like, oh, okay, just take the offer, But I'm a big believer in just saying, thank you. I'm excited about the offer, and let me go digest. And so in the Accountability Club, that course really talks about, if you've got your goals in those 4 key areas, personal, professional, health, and financial, you're going to know and be better equipped to negotiate as you are moving up the corporate ladder, as you are changing roles, because you understand better what you need in order to be successful, right? Like, and that to me changes the scope of what the negotiation is, because you build that confidence in yourself in order to know what you're bringing to the table. And you bring that confidence in yourself of knowing what you need as well as your family in order for you to fully show up. I think of it as like, you better get what you need so that you can show up how you showed up in your interview. Right? Because that's what that company deserves. That what you promised in the interview, go do that. And if you need something to do it, you better ask. And that's the negotiating. And so, I have this template that talks about not just the liquid benefits that you're negotiating, but also the non-liquid. So like, RSUs, all that kind of stuff. But then most importantly, your joy factors, right? So I had a client. I'm very excited for this client. And she was on maternity leave. And somebody referred her for a role. She was like, I'm on maternity leave. They're like, the role's open. This company would be great for you. So she calls me and is like, I'm on maternity leave, but I need some I need some interview prep now. I'm like, okay. So we're doing our interview prep, and there's presentations. So we get the presentations ready and everything. We work together. I'm coaching her through it. She's doing interview prep. And then she gets the offer. She's on maternity leave. Like, till this day, I mean, I love this. I love it for her family. So she gets the offer, and she's like, well, I need to finish my maternity leave, and I need to go back to my employer after my maternity leave, and I need to give notice, and I need to properly wrap things up, right? Because to me, it's not just about you get the offer and you go. Like, I like to leave somewhere better than when I found it, right? Like, I'm still very close with people at the other companies I worked at. like at Boeing and Salesforce both. I'm still very close with them. So that's what I would want. So I believe in that. So, and that's what my client believed too. So she finished her maternity leave. She went back to the other job. She had a conversation. She wrapped up projects, did good handovers. And then she went to the new job. And that's the power of knowing your worth. And you know it, you can speak it. And that's what she did. And that's why that company was willing to wait for her. Right. And she's kicking butt over there. Everything's great. But her family's also better set up. Why? Because she negotiated what she needed. And she's able to go in there and do a great job because she doesn't have to think about, oh, should I have asked for this? Or, oh my gosh, I left all these things on the table. You don't want to bring that. So your employer doesn't deserve you to bring that, right? So you better ask for it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot to love about that as well. To your point, like leaving places better than you found them, not only like feels good, but I think that you, in the like wanting to be proud of what you've done and what you've been through and what you've put other people through, I just think that those types of things are important. And when you can stop and think about like, how do I want this to go? How do I want to be perceived? What do other people need? It helps you make better decisions in those areas. And then, I didn't even know like negotiation and knowing your worth was even part of your method at all. But I just had a conversation a couple of podcasts ago. It kind of fits in here, but it's like when you operate from like a scarcity mindset or operating below the line, you aren't giving your best and you are taking things that are below your worth. And, you have to figure out like, how do I think about things from an abundant mindset, knowing that, this is not the last opportunity I'm ever going to have, or this is not the best opportunity I'm ever going to have. So I love that you teach like knowing your worth, because I think that's such an important step. And women in general just aren't really taught to think that way or taught how to like negotiate in those ways.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's part of the accountability, right? It's like someone once taught me to do that. And now if I'm truly going to be a good accountability partner to others, a good coach to others, a good mentor, heck, even a good friend, I'm going to have those conversations. They're not always fun. I remember when I first started talking about money, I was like, I don't know anything about this. I think I'm failing at it. I think I'm not capable of it. But that wasn't true. I was capable and I am capable. And I've learned a lot about money. I'm a great financial advisor now. And he's teaching me more. He's doing the heavy lifting, but he's also educating me at the same time so that together we can make really smart decisions that align, with my goals. I want to say something right quick because when you said, I didn't even know negotiating was part of what you do. And it takes me back to what you said about Fosse, you're very humble about these things. Like you don't talk about your title, you talk about. And one thing that I'm trying to be really mindful of is hearing people when they're like, I didn't know you could do that, because I'm challenging myself to get better as an entrepreneur about sharing what it is that I offer. And yeah, like the foundation is still that vision and goals method. But within that, we've got those 4 key areas. And so I wanted to make sure that in the accountability club, there was something for each of those 4 key areas, personal, professional, health, and financial, because they're equally important into recognizing ourselves as a whole. And so that's why the negotiation stuff is in there, because you got to get to the money if you're going to get to the fun.
So tell us more about the method itself.
Yeah. So the biggest thing is that it's rooted in joy. And so it really can be tailored, right? So there's the 5 steps, but within that, it's so empowering, right? You start with meditating, and I call that energize your mindset. And then the second step is about joy, and that one's recognize your joy. The third step is really writing out your vision. And that's what I call visualize your future. but the fourth step is where the meat is. And when I have the vision and goals parties, I always tell people, I'm like, okay, it was a little soft and easy up to now, but now is when it gets hard, because I'm going to have you lay out your goals in each area in 10-year, 5-year, and 1 year. And so I have this chart. It's called a conceptualization chart, because you're really conceptualizing your life over the next 10 years and saying, okay, if my vision is this, where do I need to be in 10 years, personally, professionally, health, and financial? And then taking each of those and saying, what's the halfway mark, right? Mm-hmm. Like, what's at 5 years? What does that look like in 5 years? And then what can I do today, this year? Mm-hmm. And the big part about it is, once you have that, post it in your house, right? And I don't have to go full force ahead on everything every day, right? Because I think that's a big part of it, is that when you have just the vision and you don't have the goals with it, you feel this pressure of, I've got to do everything. But when you have the vision mm-hmm. and the goals, you understand, mm-hmm. okay, you know what? In this season, I really want to focus on my career. Like, I might be a crap daughter, a crap mother, like a crappy friend for the next 3-4 months, 6 months, a year. But I know where I want to be personally. And mm-hmm. I know that I can pick up those personal goals. Mm-hmm. But for right now, I'm going to be clear with everybody that I really got to focus here. And I'm coming back, and that clarity personally empowers you to share it with others, so people know what's going on. The same, vice versa. Maybe you're like, I'm vying for promotions right now. Mm-hmm. I'm good. I like where mm-hmm. I'm at. I want to keep doing this level of work because I want to invest in my self-care. I want to invest, mm-hmm. My kids are at an age where I want to be going to the baseball games. I want to be going to gymnastics meets. So I don't want to be going hard at work. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get my job done, right? I'm going to fulfill my duties. I'm going to do it. But I'm not doing that like I'm trying to get a promotion work. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so that conceptualization chart really helps gel it in our minds of like, oh, okay. This is what I'm working on right now, and it's okay. Tashonda Duckett, who I love. I don't know if you know who she is. She's the CEO of TIAA. Yeah. And she is like a powerhouse in the finance world and just like amazing woman. She's one of my sheroes. But she recently, I think it was on MSNBC or something like that, talked about life isn't, I use the word balance. She said it's not about balance, that it's about having, she calls it a balanced portfolio, right? Mm-hmm. Or a diversified portfolio. That's what she said. And I truly believe that. Yeah. That's why I developed this method is you look at yourself whole, you create all those goals. And then of course the fifth part is, how do you realize those results? How do you get the right people on your team? How do you make sure that, sorry, but sometimes you got to kick people off your bus. I call it your bus, right? Who's in the front seat of your bus? Who's in the middle? Who's in the back of the bus? Who's going to cause the bus to break down and be smoking on the side of the highway? Those people have to go. Mm-hmm. If you really want to start living your dream life, you have to be upfront with, sometimes there's people that are poison on your bus, and it's okay, right? But you have to be the one to get in the driver's seat of your bus. Yeah. Yeah.
So I just recently saw a content creator on LinkedIn. I can't remember who it is at the moment, but she talks about what you're talking about, the diversified portfolio and being able to prioritize specific areas of your life. And, she talks about it like on a quarterly basis, thinking of your life as a stove. And sometimes you put things on the back burner and sometimes you put things on the front burner. So, maybe this quarter you really want to focus on your health and you really want to focus on your family. So your career and maybe your finances are on the back burner. But then when you're like reevaluating your goals or your progress the next quarter, you look at the stove again and you decide, okay, where do I need to move things this quarter? So you're not ever like dropping things, but you are clearly prioritizing the areas. And I think example you gave about like, kind of status quo at your job is good, because there's going to be seasons where you need to go to all the networking events and you need to travel and you need to go above and beyond. But you can also have seasons where you're fulfilling your role and you're giving yourself space to be there for your family, or, you don't always have to be just grind. So I really like that analogy. I like the diversified portfolio that you talked about too, because I think that's really important. And then, the bus analogy. I don't think people understand how impactful the people they surround themselves with are on their journey. And, everybody knows the saying, like, you are the average of the 5 closest people around you. And that is like in weight, in health, in financial success, is everything. But I don't think people really are like, these people that I'm spending a lot of time with are holding me back. And the fact of the matter is, if you stop and you look at what you want and who you're spending your time with, you may actually come to that realization.
Yeah. And so I'll say this, it can be scary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, who wants to admit that they're not spending their time with folks who really make sense for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, I especially feel like, tell me if you have this, because I feel like you and I are a lot alike in that we're constantly like pouring into and serving. And sometimes you wake up and you're like, this is a one-way friendship.
Yeah.
And you're really tired.
That's a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole nother one. But that's, just one example of like, oh, do I have to do everything?
Mm-hmm.
Like, or is this a shared partnership?
Mm-hmm.
Are we growing together? Like, so I feel very blessed by the people in my life. Like, I can't say it enough, because I've had really good support.
But it's probably been really intentional, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's been intentional in the sense that the clearer I am, the more others can support me. So like, okay, when I first moved here, I was working a retail job because I was like, I gotta get some money flowing, right? We just gotta do anything. And so I'm working this retail job, which it's funny because I think it actually helped me. I lost so much weight. I was so tiny because I was just running around, holding up clothes, and I was meeting people. I was having fun. It was great. But so I say that I'm working this retail job, and there was this woman that used to always come in, and everybody thought she was so grouchy. And so no one would talk to her but me. I mean, I didn't care. Like, she would tell me, I want a loose shirt. Okay, I get her a loose shirt. And so one day she came in and she said, what do you want to do? I said, corporate social responsibility. I was very clear with her. She said, okay, I've got an introduction for you. That introduction changed everything. Turns out she was a partner at a big finance firm, at a big like hedge fund or venture capital fund. And their CSR person is who she introduced me to. She went to her office the very next day and said, hey, there's this young lady I know. She just moved here from Oklahoma. She wants to do what you do. Can I introduce you? And the woman's like, yeah. Literally last week, I was at an event with that woman and somebody asked how she knew me. And she was like, oh, this partner at the firm I work at came in and said that this woman that was working retail was very clear and was very adamant and told her, I want to do corporate responsibility. Do you know anyone? And she was like, ding, 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 I know someone. And so it was interesting because I had never heard the other person tell the story. But what's also wild about this is like 3 years later, I was in some fellowship or something, and there was a guy in it, and he was from the same company. And I said, oh, do you know Diana Ware? She changed my life. Like, she asked me what I want to do. I told her, and she made an intro, and that intro changed everything. And he was like, yeah, I know her. When I go back to work tomorrow, I'm going to tell her I met you. He sent me this email, and he said, Diana said you were the only person in the store that was nice to her while she was going through chemo and radiation for breast cancer. And I just remember reading that email and being like, I had no idea
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know this woman's journey. Everybody, thought she was just so grouchy. And I just was like, I'm going to be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
She was clear on what she wanted. She wanted a soft, loose shirt. Now
Mm-hmm.
I know why she wanted a soft, loose shirt. Back
Mm-hmm.
then I didn't know. And so I just say that to say is that we were both helping each other and I had no idea. That
Mm-hmm.
whole time I thought I was the only one receiving help.
Mm-hmm.
And I still credit her because she did. I mean, she changed the whole game. She made that intro. And then I met everybody that did CSR. And then I was able to maneuver. But the clarity is what helped. So
Yeah.
that's why I always tell people, I'm like, you've got to start with your vision and your goals. And that's how you
Mm-hmm.
can articulate it in order to support the people who are going to support you.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. So this morning I recorded another episode, and we talked a lot about confidence in that episode, but my guest said something that I think really is very relatable to what you're talking about. But we were just talking about goals, and the problem with setting bad goals is you don't know whether you hit them or whether you don't, or when to celebrate or whatever. And she said, cloudy goals create cloudy confidence. And so I think, what you're saying, how clear you are, had you been cloudy, she wouldn't have known what to do with what you told her.
Right.
But because you were so clear, it made it so easy. She's like, I know this person. It's easy for me to help you. But if you had been like, well, I think I want to do, and then you just talked for 25 minutes, she probably leaves there being like, well, good luck. It's like, but she was able to help you because you were so clear. And so I think if you think about it, like, how do you take things from cloudy to clear?
Right. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Cloudy to clear.
Yeah.
Cloudy to clear.
I love that too.
I mean, and that's what it's all about. I will say, because outside of the vision and goals parties, like the corporate workshops that I did one a couple weeks ago for a company for their intern class. And I love doing this one because we do elevator pitch and beyond. Because everybody thinks it's, okay, get your elevator pitch. But it's like, how are you going to get your elevator pitch if you're not clear?
Mm-hmm.
So first I give them the tools to get clear on what they want to do and what they're good at doing. And then I give them the formula for how to articulate it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, where are you going to articulate it?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not just for that elevator pitch. It's also for your LinkedIn like profile. It's also for when you meet someone out and about, or it's just can be used in so many places that I wanted them to understand like, oh no, this is your base. Like this is your home base. This is your clarity. This is how you empower others to help you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You and I, we talked about this a little bit. Goal setting for us, it has been a little natural, I'll say, or something that's been an extension of what we've done professionally for a long time. But I know that there are a lot of people who've never set personal goals, who have a very cloudy vision of what they want their future to look like, which just leads to a cloudy plan. And, that feeling of being comfortable, but not really feeling fulfilled. So what are like some of the challenges that you see from people who come to your workshops or your clients that you work with in like figuring out how to set good goals for themselves?
I think the biggest challenge, and this came up at the last vision and goals party, is asking for help. And the reason is because if you're not having conversations, you're not going to start getting clear. Right. So when I knew I wanted to go into corporate social responsibility, I had a lot of conversations with people who did it. And I asked the exact same 5 questions of each person because it was like a data funnel for me to understand there are these different areas of corporate social responsibility. Oh, there are these different ways of going about it. There are these pros, there are these cons, right? And I say that to say asking for help is really paramount when you're goal setting, because you might think you want something, but you might not be clear on what that something is, right? People come and ask me all the time, oh, how do I get into CSR or corporate philanthropy, whatever they want to call it? I'm like, you got to understand, like, I'm not fully deciding where the money is going, right? There's a strategy. that role is a lot about strategy, relationship building. And it's not just like Oprah, like you get $1 million, you get
You get a check. You get a check. Yeah.
right. And so it's very interesting because I like to explain that to people. I'm also like, I'm in service. So I am coordinating and strategizing and bringing volunteer activities to, 100, 400,000 employees. But that means I'm actually not volunteering that much myself. So I always like to challenge people that if you really want to get clear on what you want to do, you've got to talk to people that are doing that, because you might find out you don't want to do it. You really might find that out. And that's okay, right? Like, I grew up saying I wanted to be a lawyer.
Me too.
Oh, seriously?
Me too. Yes. I even took the LSAT, I did all the things. And then finally I was like, I realized what lawyers do. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. While I think there's some really valuable like skill sets and things like that, it was like, that is not how I want to be like spending my time.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's okay, right? And I think that's the second part about goal setting. There's the asking for help that will help you get over that hurdle, right? And that's the scary part, because you're like, what if someone doesn't respond to me? Guess what? All the time people don't respond to me, right? But I just have to know in my heart and soul, like, they're busy. It has nothing to do with me. Maybe technology glitch, maybe they're busy. I don't know, but I'm going to keep asking. And that's a big hurdle to overcome. And that second hurdle is admitting, right? So another personal story is that I started the company with a vision and goals, but then, everything was telling me, you got to niche down. You can't just be a life coach. But like, I believe in living holistically. And like, that's my expertise that I can bring to the world. So it's like, you got to niche down. Like, no one's going to understand that. No one's going to sign up for that. All these pressures. And so I started saying, I'm a career coach. Well, about 1.5 years into that, I had a good friend sit me down and was like, Bossy, you never been in HR. What's your expertise in this career part? Like, yeah, you know how to do it. But he was like, your expertise even more is in joy. He was like, I could listen to you talk about joy all day long. He's like, I've never known someone more joyful. Never known someone so passionate in believing that they deserve joy and believing that others deserve joy. He was like, you don't have to pigeonhole into career. He was like, you've got to get back to what you started for. And I am so grateful that he did that, because clearly that's where I'm supposed to be. Like, the business took off even more once I started shifting from that. But it was hard, because I was like, oh my gosh, I've recorded all these things and put them on YouTube where I'm talking about, it was a hard thing to admit. Yeah. And honestly, it probably took me a good 6 months to wrap my mind around, like, oh, okay, like, now I'm going to change the title of my business on LinkedIn. Like, oh, like, what are people going to think? Like, am I going to be confusing? Now I'm not a consistent business owner. And all those things creep in. But guess what? It's okay to change your mind. Just like we both took the LSAT. Guess what? Now I have a ton of friends that are lawyers, and that's very, very helpful. That's super helpful, right? But you have to be, and it takes time. I say you have to be, and I just stopped myself because I realized it sounded so like cavalier, like, oh, it's very easy. It is not easy to ask for help. It is not easy to change directions. But those are key drivers in accomplishing your goals. And the third one I would say is supporting others. You cannot expect to receive and not give. And that's why I feel so strongly about giving myself, because so many people have poured into me. Like, I still can't believe Diana, the woman at the store, was just like, what do you want to do? Like, she must have seen something in me that I didn't even see. Kelly, I could talk to you all day.
I know. This is great. I know we're at time, and I still have like 3 more things on my list that we didn't even get to, but maybe one day we'll do a part 2. So yeah, I think that was great. I mean, I already said it, but I think that like, this is something that people need personally. I created recently like a journal and planner. I know you have one too, but I think that it's really important to, work towards an authentic and intentional life so that you can achieve the things that you want. And really, you're the only one, you as in yourself, you're the only one that's going to ensure that happens for you. And so you just have to take responsibility for doing what you need to do and seeking out help and getting a coach and have somebody who knows what they're doing, walk you through how to get from where you are to where you want to be. And I would love for you to tell people more about how they can get in touch with you, how they can become a part of your accountability circle. So what does all that look like?
Yeah. So, okay, there's 2 things and both of them end up at the Accountability Club. And so the Accountability Club, the website is just community.goalandgrind.com. And you can sign up. There's 2 different levels there. There's one that's free and there's one that's paid that gets you a little more of those in-depth courses and things. But it's fun. We have weekly challenges and things inspiration that I share. And yeah, it's a good place. I call everybody in there the goal besties. So that's the Accountability Club. And then the other 2 main pillars of my business are really, I go in and do corporate workshops, right? So the elevator pitch workshop, the professional presence workshops, the vision and goals workshops. And so I do those a lot with intern classes or BRG groups, and they're really great because they empower folks to be the best that they can be, not only professionally, but also personally. And employers find it to be a good investment in their team. And then on the individual side, I'm open for individual coaching. And no matter what, if it's on the corporate side or the individual side, people can still join the Accountability Club and have that ongoing support. And that's what it was really built for. And then, the vision and goals parties that are open to the public, which I have one at least every January. We're working to intertwine more in, but you can always find out about these things by following me on Instagram or LinkedIn, which is at Goal and Grind. Both of them are at Goal and Grind. You can just go straight to the website, www.goalandgrind.com.
Yeah. I'm going to include all of those links that you just mentioned in the show notes. Do you do your vision goals parties? Are they in person or are they virtual?
So in the pandemic, I was doing virtual, but now I'm doing in person. And spoiler alert, I'm looking at locations outside of Chicago too.
Okay.
And so I've been contacted by a few potential partners. So we might have some locations outside of Chicago, but right now they're in person in Chicago. And they're really good because I see people's lives being transformed, and I get to hear about it.
Yeah. Well, if you ever come to South Florida, let me know. I think that would be amazing.
I will.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been great. I know listeners will love this. I hope they reach out to you, and just thank you so much for sharing your time and your energy with us today. It's been amazing.
Thank you, Kelly. It's been a true honor and a joy. I could not ask for a better afternoon. So thank you for inviting me. Thank you for your curious questions, and thank you. Just thank you for everything.
Yeah. Thank you. And we will talk to you again soon.
Okay. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode. It's truly an honor to help bring these conversations to you. I do have a couple of quick favors to ask of you. While you're listening to an episode, could you take a screenshot and post that to your Instagram stories and tag me at Life Intended Podcast? And just let me know what your favorite takeaways were or what you liked about the episode. It really helps me to learn more about what you love and want to see more of. And if you have a few extra minutes, if you'd go to iTunes or wherever you listen, I'd love it if you could leave me a rating and review. Ratings and reviews are one of the best ways new listeners can find the show, and I'd love nothing more to grow this and help more people live a life intended. See you again here next week.